morning everyone, it's Lisa here with you today, and I thought I would create a couple of cards using the Carol Ornament. Now this is actually a layering die, you can turn it into shakers and things, but I thought I'd do something a little bit different with it. I'm a really big fan of using striped backgrounds on my cards. I don't actually think I've created one here on the Crafty Meraki YouTube channel, but I thought I would today. So I've taken 6 different coloured card stocks there, and I'm going to start trimming those into 1/2-inch strips. And I'm going to do, I think, about 4 or 5 strips from each of the colours, and that's going to enable me to make 2 backgrounds today. Striped backgrounds are really good fun to play with, experimenting with colours and different widths of strips, and they can really help you make cards quickly, especially if you do all the panels in one go. So here's a look at all the different strips that I've got cut and ready to go. So now we're going to go ahead and prepare our 2 white panels. And for my adhesive, I'm going to be using sticky adhesive sheets today. So I've got 2 panels cut to size. They're 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So just taking the backing sheet off the adhesive sheet there, and I'm going to lay my first panel down and just make sure that that's completely covered on the back side with the adhesive. And then I'm going to repeat the process with the second panel. And then once I'm sure that I've completely covered both of the panels with adhesive, I can actually just trim out the panels and then just keep the excess sheet for another time. And then I'm going to take those 2 panels and I'm just going to flip them over, and you can see here I've got a little bit of bubbling on the back. So I'm just going to smooth that out with a stencil pal as best as I can. Doesn't matter if I have a few bubbles, I just don't want any big ridges of adhesive. So now it's time for us to start adding our strips. So I'm just going to take that adhesive sheet off at the corner then, and I'm going to pull it part way down. This is just going to give me an area to rest my hand on when I add those strips. So I'm going to start off with my first colour, and I'm going to go in complete random order. So just placing this first one down, and it's really important that you get your first strip down absolutely correctly. So I'm taking real good care to place that down. If I have that slightly off at the top and I start to place all the rest of the strips, that will become really obvious as you go down the panel. And for my second strip, I'm just going to make sure that I butt that up really carefully against the one above. I don't want to see any of my white cardstock in between the different stripes. So just going to continue to work my way down the panel, adding each stripe as I go and removing that backing sheet as I go down the panel as well. And although I've sped up the footage a little bit here on the second panel, these come together really quickly. If you've cut all your strips beforehand, you can really make a bunch of these panels in a very short time and just keep them for other projects. So this is the really satisfying bit when you pop the panels in and just trim off the excess from the side, and then you can flip them over and see how lovely those look with all the different stripes down the front. And I never get tired of making these background panels, and they're really good to have to hand. So here they are the same, but they are different, of course, because the stripes are in a different order. So we're going to move on now to the next part of our card, and I'm going to use the Carol Ornament. I have die cut another 3 of these off camera, but I just thought I would show you the process for the final one. So I've run that through my die cutting machine. I did use a metal shim as well, just to make sure I got a really clean cut. And then I'm just going to pop out those excess pieces. For our cards today, we're actually just going to be using the snowflake portion of that die cut. So I'm just going to remove that outer circle just by trimming the snowflake out from the center, and you'll see the others there on the left hand side that I prepared a little bit earlier. And once I've cut that out, I'm just going to add some wet adhesive onto the back, and I'm going to adhere that to the other snowflake there on the left hand side. That's just to give it a little bit more dimension and stability when it sits on the final card. And now that that's adhered together, I'm just going to take some scissors and I'm going to round off each of the points on the snowflake. You really don't have to do this. This is me just being ultra fussy and wanting to have a slightly rounded edge on each of those snowflake points instead of a kind of squared off one where I cut it out of the circle. So I've got both snowflakes here. I'm just adding a little bit of glue onto the back of each one, and I'm going to add a tiny thin strip of silver glitter cardstock. So it's going to look like a string of an ornament. So just tapping off the excess glue onto that scrap bit of paper there before I add that silver glitter cardstock down. And I'm going to go ahead and do the same with the other one. I set those aside to dry, and it's now time to add them onto our panel. So I'm adding some glue just around the center of the snowflake, and you can see here I did actually go ahead and cut off the silver strip from this one. I thought for this panel I would just have it as an isolated snowflake in the center. So just pressing that down. But for the second panel, you'll see I do keep the silver string attached to that one. So I'm adding some adhesive onto the back of that, and then I'm going to place that down onto the second panel. But I'm going to put that slightly more towards the top of the card. Just making 1 or 2 changes between the two of them just helps to individualize them a little bit more. They do primarily look the same, but there are a couple of differences. I change out the sentiments as well. But for now, we're going to go ahead and start adding the panels onto the 2 base cards. So just adding the glue onto the back there, and then I'm going to press that down, and I've created a slightly smaller panel here, so there is a white border around the edge of that card. But for this card, I'm actually just going to keep this as a full A2 panel. Again, so just adding the adhesive onto the back there, and then I'm going to add that down onto the base card. Now it's time to add our sentiments. So for my first one, I'm using Happy Christmas, and I've white heat embossed this onto black cardstock. I've put some foam tape onto the back, and I'm just going to pop it up over the center. The same goes for the second card, but this one has Merry Christmas as its sentiment. To finish off the cards, I'm going to add a little bit of bling, courtesy of the Fairy Garden Meraki Sparkle Mix. Another beautiful mix of jewels. These ones are kind of silver iridescent, but they go really well with the different colours of cardstock that I've used today. So if you're looking for ideas for any last minute cards that you need to make, have a rummage through your different cardstocks and see what colours you've got. These are really quick and easy to make. So I hope that you've enjoyed the video. Thank you for being here with me today. I will be back again with another card for you in a week or so's time. But in the meantime, I hope that you have a wonderful day. Bye for now.